Hare Krishna. Today we will continue our discussion in the Nectar Devotion. We will do the last chapter. This is the 19th chapter of the course, and this is the fourth wave and the category of Bhavarup Bhakti, which is Prema Bhakti. So, Prema Bhakti, as we mentioned earlier on, Bhava Bhakti is called Prema Ankura, or is compared to the race. And when Bhava Bhakti matures, then it is called Prema Bhakti. So Rupa Goswami does not speak a lot about Prema Bhakti because he's already spoken considerably about Bhava Bhakti, and since they are essentially the same, the difference being that Prema Bhakti is a mature stage of Bhava Bhakti. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is mentioned that when Bhava softens the heart completely, and one becomes endowed with a great feeling of possessiveness in relationship to the Lord, and it becomes very much condensed and intensified, it is called Prema. And authorities like Bhima have explained that Prema means giving up all so-called love for any other person. So one reposes one's affection completely upon one person, withdrawing all affinities from any other person. It doesn't mean that a person at the stage of Prema becomes indifferent to other devotees, because essentially Krishna and his devotees are not different. But the point is that any relationship that is not centered around Krishna is of no interest to the person. The person's main focus is in terms of the relationship with Krishna. So, characteristic of Prema Bhakti, the primary characteristic is Bhava Sa Eva Sandratma. Right. So, the primary characteristic is that it is an intensified state of Bhava. So it inherits the definition of Bhava with the additional qualification that it is the intensified stage. Secondary characteristic of Prema is one is Samyan Mashnita Savanto, that it completely softens the heart. Right? So softening of the heart means that the person is at an heightened stage of emotions, and a person is sensitive to activities related to Krishna. Right? Sometimes when the gopis would see the clouds, they would be so much reminded of Krishna because of the dark color, and they would just go into ecstasy, right? Stage of very, very heightened emotions. The second is mamatra ati sayankita, that one becomes highly possessive towards Krishna. So in the stage of bhava, the mood was tadatma, tadiya, that I belong to Krishna. In prema bhakti, the mood is mamatva, that Krishna belongs to me. Right? So even a more like Yashoda, she does not think that she belongs to Krishna. Like she thinks Krishna belongs to her. She needs to take care of him. She needs to bathe him, feed him. If she does not feed Krishna, he will go hungry. If he does not take care of him, he'll become tired. So that is the stage of mamatva. Like Krishna is uh, uh, is mine. So in Bhava Bhakti, one gets vision of the Lord and understands his eternal relationship with Krishna. So Bhava Bhakti is when at Shuddha Sattva Visheshatma, right? So Krishna's um, cognitive and blissful potencies descend into the heart. So one is able to understand Krishna's pastime, and one is also able to get a sense or experience the bliss in those pastimes. Right? However, in Prema Bhakti, one actually enters into the Lord's pastimes in one's eternal spiritual ecstasy. Right? So that in Bhava Bhakti, one is observing it and feeling happiness. In Prema Bhakti, one is actually participating, and thus they are feeling happiness. So achieving prema, so just like bhava, it can be bhava was achieved by sadhana bhakti or by mercy. Prema is achieved by bhava or by mercy. So bhava we knew has Vaidi and Raguna, and the mercy part of bhava is combined with the mercy part of prema. So prema arising from bhava achieved through sadhana Vaidi bhakti is when a devotee in the course of executing the regulative principles of devotional service develops and matures his natural Krishna consciousness. Right. So essentially, this is the power of sadhana Vaidhi bhakti. Sometimes we think that it is preliminary, it is just a stage, but it can actually take one to perfection. Just by practicing sadhana Vaidhi bhakti, one can achieve bhava and one can achieve prema. Um, in Srimad Bhagavatam 11 to 40, this point is made where just by practicing the regulative principles of devotional service, one can arouse bhava and then prema. Now, bhava, when it becomes, can also come as a result of sadhana, raguna, bhakti, and that can further that can further mature into prema. So when we were discussing bhava, we were talking about the example from Padma Purana of Chandrakanti, who, through the process of sadhana raguna, wanted to follow the dancing of the gopis, and through that she developed bhava, and then she developed prema after that. Then, just like bhava can be achieved by the mercy of Krishna, prema can also be achieved by the extraordinary mercy of Krishna. So Krishna mentions in Bhagavatam 11:12:7, he tells Uddhav that the gopis of Vrindavan did not study the Vedas to achieve me, nor had they ever been in holy places of pilgrimage, nor did they ever devoutly execute any regulative principles, nor did they undergo any kind of austerity. It is simply by my association that they have attained the highest perfection of devotional service. That is the extraordinary mercy of Krishna. Now, based on the way that one gets prema, there are two evolutions of prema. So one is from sadhana Vaidhi bhakti, one basically attains what is known as Vaidhi bhavutto, right? So this is essentially bhava, that is the mature state of sadhana Vaidhi bhakti, which then matures into what is known as prema mahatmya jnana, right? And so mahatmya prema jnana is prema that is imbued with the knowledge of Aishwarya, with the knowledge of the Lord's greatness. So Srila Prabhupada mentions that if on account of profound veneration for the greatness of the Supreme Lord, one attains a great affection and steady love for him, one is certainly assured of achieving the four kinds of Vaishnava of liberation. Right. So this is known as Prema Mahatmya Jnana. Mahatmya means the greatness. Mahatmya Jnana means being aware of the greatness of Krishna. Like Krishna's wives in Dwarka, they're at the stage of prema, but they're also aware of Krishna's greatness, right? Aishwarya. They don't take the kind of liberties that the gopis take, right? For them, Krishna is worthy of respect, husband. They're aware of Krishna's greatness, so they deal with a lot of etiquette with Krishna, right? So not to say that the wives went through the stage of sadhana, Vedic bhakti, etc., but it's an example of prema that is mixed with Aishwarya. But devotees who go through the stage of sadhana, Vedic bhakti, then Veda bhavutto, which is bhava arising from sadhana Vedi, will reach the stage of prema with Aishwarya, Mahatma Jnana. Now there are devotees who will go through the stage of sadhana raguna bhakti, right? They follow the ragatmika, and then their bhava is known as raganugya bhavatu, right? So it is more emotive. It is Bhava Rupa, and they reach the stage of Keval Prema. So Keval Prema is pure and one-pointed Prema that is not even slightly mixed with any other aspiration or interest. So there is no desire for Vaikuntha liberation. There is no interest in the Lord's Aishwarya, power, or opulence. The only one-pointed attention is Keval Prema, or love for Prema. So Srila Rupa Goswami explains from the Narad Pancharatra that if a devotee is continuously in love with the Lord Krishna and his mind is always fixed upon him, that devotional service will prove to be the only means of attracting the attention of Krishna. In other words, a Vaishnava is always thinking of the form of Krishna is known to be a pure Vaishnava. So, in conclusion, Rupa Goswami talks about the evolution of prema, right? That how, so this is the famous word, Adar Shraddha Tatha Sadhu Sang Tatha Bhajan Kriya, that how by going through these stages of Shraddha, which is faith, Sadhu Sang, which is association of devotees, Bhajan Kriya, which is being initiated by the spiritual master and following devotional purpose, service, then Anartha Nivritti, which is becoming freed from anarthas, then Nishtha, Ruchi, Ashakti. So these are the stages of Raghunath Bhakti when one has natural attraction. And then finally there is Bhava Tatha Prema. And these are the perfection of Bhakti. So Prabhupada summarizes this in the first paragraph of page 146. Now, even though Rupa Goswami and Prabhupada explained prema, both at this stage, bhava and prema, they are difficult to understand because we cannot relate to the state ourselves. Like a person in the state of prema is so inundated in the waves of transcendental emotions that he himself cannot perceive external happiness or distress. So when sometimes devotees see that when Krishna had left Vrindavan, the gopis were in so much of suffering. Really speaking, Krishna lived in Vrindavan for around 11 years, a little over 11 years, and then he left. And after that, Krishna's manifest pastimes were continued for more than another 100 years. And the gopis were essentially, for the most part, in suffering in separation from Krishna. But this is prema. So actually, that suffering that we see, which we apply by our own standards, in the gopis, they are extreme happiness. Right? So because it is contrary to our conventional understanding, it is difficult for us to understand. So on page 146, the statement is made, "My dear Supreme Goddess, you may know from me that anyone who has developed the ecstasy of love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead and who is always merged in transcendental bliss on the account of love cannot even perceive material happiness or distress coming from body or mind." And this mention of prema is very brief. Two reasons mentioned. One is bhava is exactly like prema in the early stage, and both bhava and prema are difficult to perceive. Right? So Rupa Goswami maintains brief description. He also refers the readers to Brad Bhagavatamrita by Sanatana Goswami for a more detailed description. So with this, he ends the eastern section, offering obeisances to his gurus, Sanatana Goswami and other prominent Goswamis. Right. So with this, we come to the end of the 19th chapter and the end of the nectar of devotion that is relevant to the Bhakti Sastri. So I wanted to just end with this very nice picture when Srila Prabhupada spent the Kartik of 1972 in Vrindavan. Then for a whole month he spoke on the nectar of devotion. And most of the lectures were in the courtyard of the Radha Damodar temple. Right? And uh, one of the statements Prabhupada made here was Hare Krishna. So we have published our nectar of devotion. So every one of you should read this nectar of devotion repeatedly. The whole substance of Vaishnava philosophy and activities, everything is there. So every one of you read this nectar of devotion once, twice, thrice. And Prabhupada was very, very fond of the nectar of devotion, spoke about it like for 30 days he spoke, and there were devotees from all over the world who still remember this wonderful time of hearing Prabhupada speak about nectar of devotion. And Prabhupada's request to us is to read it not just once, but over and over again. So all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to the nectar of devotion. Hare Krishna.